Jai Shri Radhe, so Vaishnav ko Jai Shri Krishna. Aaj ke Anand ki Jai ho. Continuing, today's day 199 and Varta 189 and continuing into 190. The story of the hunter, Bhav Prakash. This is a devotee of Rajasi disposition. In the eternal Leela, his name is Vishwasksheni, who manifests from Sri Dham and is thus a personification of her divine loving sentiment. He was born into a family of hunters in Lohawan. From his very birth he was engaged in evil deeds. He reached the age of 20 and then one day came to Mansarovar to hunt. This has been told in the previous story. Part 1. By the mere touch of the swan's wings, the hunter's intelligence was purified. He gained spiritual knowledge. He wanted to become a Vaishnava and asked the Vaishnavas gathered there to tell him how. They told him to go to Sri Gokul, to Sri Gosaiji. There he could be initiated with the Lord's name and become a Vaishnava. When the hunter arrived in Gokul, he saw Sri Gosaiji performing his Sandhya prayers on Sri Thakurani Ghat. The hunter went to the Ghat and asked the Vaishnavas if this was Sri Gosaiji from Gokul. They replied, "Yes, this is he." The hunter prostrated before him and piped up, "O Maharaj, I have come to take refuge in you. Please bless me by initiating me with your Lord's name." With the Lord's name. Sri Gosaiji spoke, "But you are a hunter. You were firing arrows at the swan couple. How can I bless you with the beloved Lord's name?" The hunter replied, "O merciful Lord, I stand guilty as accused by you, but from now on I shall never ever engage in the killing of creatures. Please initiate me with the Lord's name." Sri Gosaiji said, "You must never kill another creature. Instead you should make a living as a farmer." The hunter agreed to do as Sri Gosaiji instructed and again asked to be accepted into Sri Gosaiji's shelter. Sri Gosaiji told him to go bathe in the Yamuna river, and he did so. Sri Gosaiji then called him and initiated him with the Lord's name. He also reminded him to refrain from killing creatures. He said, "Now go and earn your living." In this way the hunter was purified through the association of the swan couple. He became worthy of such blessings, and an accomplished Vaishnava, he ceaselessly chanted the Lord's 8-syllable Ashtakshara mantra. Bhav Prakash. The moral of this story is that even the most sinful being can be uplifted by Sri Gosaiji when they go to him for shelter. Sri Raghunathji has, in his Navaratnakya treatise, given Sri Gosaiji's name as Mahapatid Pavana, the purifier and uplifter of even the most fallen and sinful Vaishnavas. Must be very cautious and careful about the taking of lives of every single type of embodied souls and creatures. Thus concludes Varta 189, the story of the hunter who received Sri Gosaiji's great grace and was thus an accomplished Vaishnava. There is no end to his story. Varta 190. The story of Pitambar Das, a Brahmin from Gujarat who toured the Vraja land together with Sri Gosaiji. Bhav Prakash. This is a devotee of Sattvic disposition. In the eternal Leela, his name is Brahmavalli, who manifests from Mohini and is thus a personification of her divine loving sentiment. He was born into a Brahmin family in Gujarat. He was 20 when he came into contact with a group of Vaishnavas. He regularly attended their gatherings and listened to the stories of the Lord's divine pastimes. He pondered, "Oh, when will I be able to meet Sri Gosaiji? When might I become a Vaishnava?" After some time, his parents died. A group of Vaishnavas was about to set off on a trip to Gokul. Pitambar Das came to Gokul with them. Part 1. Pitambar Das came to Gokul with a group of Vaishnavas. He prostrated before Sri Gosaiji and humbly requested him to initiate him with the Lord's name. "I have been wandering around purposely for a long time. Please forgive me for all my offences." Sri Gosaiji initiated him with the Lord's name and the Brahmasambandh in Sri Navaneet Priyaji's presence. Pitambar Das gave a donation according to his best ability. Sri Gosaiji came to sit in his baitak when he had completed Sri Navaneet Priyaji's Seva. When Vaishnavas came to have audience with him, Pitambar Das came and bowed low before him. Sri Gosaiji went to partake of Mahaprasad and then gave his plate of Mahaprasadi leftovers to Pitambar Das. As Pitambar Das partook of that prasad, he gained the divine insight that Sri Gosaiji is the Lord himself, and he there and then decided that he would never leave Sri Gosaiji's side. "I will remain in the shelter of his lotus feet." Pitambar Das never left that place. After a short while, Sri Gosaiji employed Pitambar Das in his personal service, and Pitambar Das happily served him. Part 2. One day, Pitambar Das felt a spiritual longing to tour the Vraja land. He asked Sri Gosaiji, who said that he would also like to tour all of Vraj. "Then you can come with me." Sri Gosaiji recognized Pitambar Das' great longing, and so he decided to make the trip happen. This was in the month of Chaitra. Sri Gosaiji had settled in Gokul on the 7th day of the dark half of Fagun in the year somewhat 1628, that equals, 1628, which equals 1578. After this, on the 12th day of the dark month of Bhadrapad, Sri Gosaiji performed the arati just before Sen, when the Lord takes to his rest, and then, taking his son Sri Gokulnathji with him, and proceeding very quietly so that no one would know, he left Gokul and came to Mathura, where he stayed the night. He called a Chaube Brahmin called Ujagar to him. Through him, he solemnized his vow to establish dharma, or spiritual duties, for the trip. With this understanding, very lovingly and following all the usual regulations, Sri Gosaiji bathed at Vishram Ghat and then set off. The Chaube asked, "Should I come with you?" Sri Gosaiji said, "Why take so much trouble? I only need you for the solemnization. I will not bother you to come along without being paid." Ujagar piped up, "Oh Maharaj, we should go to have the sight of Bhuteshwar first." Sri Gosaiji encountered, "We will never pay our respects to Bhuteshwarji from here. We won't go there to the temple." Then Sri Gosaiji he said, "We will pay our respects to Bhuteshwar from here. We won't go there to the temple." Then Sri Gosaiji set off, taking his leave from there itself. He visited all the lovely sites of Vraja, where the environment was most salubrious, and the calls of peacocks and other birds could be heard. Sri Gosaiji was accompanied by the following disciples of his: Chacha Harivamsji, Pitambar Dasji, Kanha, Malaha Bhandari, Kavo Tiwari, Gopinath Das Gwal, Keshod Das Vishal Nagar, Roop Rajput, Murari Das Gwal, Leeladhar Das, who was the cook for the Vaishnavas, Narayan Das Pandey, Anyoria, Krishna Das Moli, Jasharat. These three were temple singers from Gokul. Narayan Das, Ram Das, whom he brought with him from Mathura, Giyajat, who cracked many jokes and made everyone laugh along the way, Keshav Bhatt, Janj Maru Niko, his son, Bhagwan Das Gaurav, and Bhavani. These three were Tilang Brahmins, 21 and 22 Govind and Mathurani, who were good singers. Then there was a wagon, water tank and a horse, as well as 23 Jivan Das Nabar and Rupa, who brought equipment for sleeping. Their first port of call was Madhuvan. Then they bathed at the Kund and had the holy site of Sri Kalyanaraji. They travelled on whilst observing all the surrounding area. Next came Talawan, and they bathed in the lake there before having the holy site of Sri Bihari Lalji. Then they went to Kamodwan. They bathed in the lake and had the holy site of Sri Gopinathji and Sri Kalyanaraji. Observing all the places in between, they came back round to Madhuvan, where they cooked and made offerings to Sri Thakurji. They accepted back the offerings as prasad and partook of the prasad. Sri Gosaiji took rest. Having risen in the early morning and performed their daily ablutions, they moved on to Satoi and Santanu Raja's palace of penance. After pondering upon comprehending Satanu Raja's austerities and intention, Sri Gosaiji moved from there, and they went to Surya and Bahula-Wan, where there is a form of Bahula cow which they worshipped, and they also donated a cow. They had the holy site of Sri Madana Mohanji. They proceeded from Rin to Arishta Nivaran. From there they came to Radha Kund, Krishna Kund, where they bathed and had the holy site of Sri Radhaji and Sri Krishnaji. Then they came to Shamdak, where they had some snacks before moving onwards to Govardhan. That day was very hot and they were all very tired. Sri Gosaiji had a fever. Then Sri Gosaiji went to have the holy site of Sri Govardhan Naji. Sri Gosaiji contacted his family, and his son Sri Gokulnathji brought him a herbal powder called Dharmadhap, a powder made from ground coriander, cumin, gooseberry, dried ginger and muleti with sugar candy. He felt better immediately after taking it. And this is where we will pause the Varta until tomorrow. Aaj ke Anand ki jai, jai jai Shri Radhe, Shivalabhadi Shiki jai, jai Shri Radhe. Sab Vaishnavan ko sadar, sab prem sa denya sa nand, jai Shri Krishna.